really wanna enjoy, really wanna enjoy. Yes. Said we all a little children too. Really remember all the things that you used to do.
For now, we see in part, but then face to face. This is what Paul states in the book of Corinthians, the 13th chapter. In the 9th verse, he says, "For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with," or done away. And most people, when they read this, presume that something is coming in the future to free them from this. Sing in part. But it is already in you. So when it comes, or when it is realized, that which was in part, which is the mind, because, for instance, and we'll read it after I explain it, but all we know of the world is through the mind, right? And the mind is only in part, or when I say in part, I mean finite, meaning it's not infinite. So in order to know reality as it truly is, or life as it truly is, the thing that knows the things of the world must break itself from being finite and become infinite, because only the infinite can know things as it truly is. And so that which is infinite is awareness or consciousness. That which is finite is the mind that only knows things in parts, the limited mind. So when you have broken free from the veil of the limited mind, when the limited mind breaks itself free and finds its source and dives itself into its source, then all things are known. But as long as you perceive things from the perception of a limited mind, it's as if you were wearing blue tinted sunglasses and telling me the snow is blue. It's limited. You must break free from the limitations that you view the world from. So it reads, "But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with." And again, in the same book of the Bible, it says, "Be ye perfect as your Father is perfect." If your Father was never in you, you can never be as your Father. The only way you can be as Him is if you realize that part of you, or that which you are, that is already perfect as He is. It's not going to come out of space and dwell on you. This is just symbolism of the beauty of it. For nothing can rise higher than its source. What does that mean? If you think you're just material, a dust of the ground, you can never rise to be in the spirit of the Most High. Because nothing can rise higher than its source. But if your source is the Most High, of which matter has been made, then that source must dwell in you. Because nothing ever manifests unless it is already in the manifestation, or the manifestation. Nothing can evolve unless it is involved. Meaning everything that is birthed out comes from a source that is already in it. Nothing manifests in effect unless it is in the cause. There are no effects that do not have the cause in them. So if you are an effect of a creation, you also have the cause in you. And so when you realize that, you will no longer speak, as he says in verse 11, "When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child," because as long as we're thinking with the limited mind, we're always thinking as children. how I see things. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. 13th century Muslim says the same thing, and I quote, "Children on the path drink the milk of the Quran and understand only its literal sense. The mature have their own understanding of its inner significance." This is the same thing Paul is stating right here. He says in verse 12, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know even as I am known." The reason we see in part is because we see things darkly because we're looking, our perception of things are through the clouds of thoughts, of mind. We're not seeing clearly with the eye that perceives all things. The eye that perceives the world is the eye of God. As he says, "But then I shall know even as I also am known." You shall know the truth you shall know even as you are known, meaning that which knows you also knows the reality of all things. Who is it that knows you? It is God. The eye, or the awareness, should I say, that knows and sees all things is the eye of God. You are not the body. The body is a movement of this eye, of this awareness. You are not the mind. The mind is just a movement of this awareness. You have no control over these things as you thought you did when you were a human. What do I mean? We think we control our thoughts, but you cannot tell me the next thought you're going to have in 2 seconds. You cannot, unless you can read the future. Thoughts just come and go. They are movements of the eye of God. And that eye is the eye that you see the world through. Just like the eye sees all the forms of the world, the eye is not the forms. The eye can see the millions of forms, but it cannot see itself. The sharpest knife in the tool shed could cut 1,000,000 things, but it cannot cut itself. The biggest scale in the world could weigh a myriad of things, but it cannot weigh itself. So too, the eye of God sees the myriad of thoughts, the myriad of feelings, the myriad of perceptions, yet it cannot see itself. But it knows its existence, and it knows itself. Because it not only knows all things, it knows itself. But it doesn't know itself as an object. It cannot be known as objects are known. It could not be known by the mind because it is what knows the mind. So just are you as known. Just as you are known by this eye, you shall know all things as they truly are. Just a manifestation of this spirit. And you will no longer think as a child, as a separate self that separated you in the Garden of Eden. To think you were a separate being and you had to clothe yourself with skins and leaves. But you will see things as they are, as one, a movement of one spirit, which is the tree of life. Life is one. It is not many. Ask yourself, are you aware right now? And is that awareness one or is it many? It is one. Just as the movie has many appearances, but the screen that the movie appears on is one. When you go and rub your finger across the screen doesn't start and stop when you come across the myriad of things. It is all made of one screen. Just like life is made of the screen of awareness, or the screen of God. There is no place that this awareness is not. Have you ever experienced anything outside of awareness? You cannot. As Paul says, we move, we live, and have our being in God, in this which knows, even as I am known. Once the mind breaks free of its limitations and finds its nature is infinite. There is no boundaries to awareness. Awareness cannot be limited by its contents. We have to come out of thinking as a child, thinking from the personal self perspective, the individual self perspective, and see ourselves as the undivided, spacious spirit that holds all things, that allows all things to come and go. Even the movements of our flesh. You must know with the mind and feel with the heart the oneness of all things. And there are truly no things. It's only one. And you can't even say one thing. You can say it's only one. A movement of one when it is clearly seen. Not through the glass darkly, but face to face. Not in part, but in light, in whole.